Morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here today. Protecting Pennsylvania jobs, empowering Pennsylvania families, and defending Pennsylvania freedoms. Those are the tenets of this Senate Republican majority. In November, the voters spoke. They sent us a new governor. They sent us a new House of Representatives. And we've heard a lot of claiming of the mantle of electoral mandates. But I think it's clear that we have to remember that the voters also returned this Senate Republican majority. We too have an electoral mandate, and we embrace that mandate. As Senator Phillips-Hill has often said, the voters have sent us divided government, but they did not send us dysfunctional government. And this Senate Republican majority has been organized, is moving forward with addressing the issues that the people of this Commonwealth care most about. Already we have taken significant action on a number of issues, and there's no doubt that inflation is a national issue that is crippling working families. And we feel with our majority that we have a responsibility to seek ways to provide relief to working families, to lift them up and help them make ends meet in these most difficult times. Already we have worked with Senator Langerholtz in his position as chair of the Senate Transportation Committee. We moved to repeal the automatic gas tax increase that took effect January 1st. We've moved to realign our transportation funding priorities by seeking to remove the state police from the motor license fund and make sure that transportation dollars are used for transportation purposes. We've sought to embrace our energy resources. We recognize that cheap energy is critical to keeping inflation under control. And we have all experienced constituents who are suffering from high power bills, high electricity bills, home heating bills, and it is not sustainable. And so we have made it very clear that we as a Senate Republican majority embrace our God-given natural resources to provide energy and electricity to not only our residents, but people across this country with reliable energy. You know, energy independence is national security, and if you don't believe that, just look at what's occurring in Eastern Europe right now. As we move forward, these next several weeks, obviously next week we'll have the governor's budget address. We'll have a better sense of what his priorities are. But make no mistake, we will continue to advance our priorities: regulatory reform, election integrity, and making sure working families have an opportunity to make ends meet. With that, I'll turn it over to our President Pro Tem, Senator Ward.
Thank you. Can you see me? Just wondering. Okay, look, I am the shortest pro tem ever in the history of Pennsylvania, and you guys need to get a smaller podium. So today, we are here to remind Pennsylvania that the Senate Republican caucus has their backs. The economy continues to remain the #1 issue of concern among Pennsylvania families. With that in mind, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, the pain of higher prices is the same for everyone. Our caucus is committed to strengthening the Commonwealth by restoring economic freedom and positioning communities to thrive. You can't have a strong economy without strong communities. The principles we are outlining today are the next step in a process that we started 2 years ago and would like to expand upon. And speaking of strong communities, I want to tell you what I'm hearing when I'm out in the community. Whether I'm at Walmart or the American Legion, it doesn't matter. I hear over and over again how hard it is to make ends meet and how inflation is affecting their families. So we are focused on putting forward legislation and ideas that help families. For example, last year, we enacted a child care tax credit. We need to prioritize and maybe expand that increase this year, if we're able to do that. We don't know what we have in our budget yet, but we have to have priorities on where we're going to spend that money. And we're going to help women and families. And yesterday, they passed legislation sponsored by me and Senator Robinson and Senator Pennycook that helps women, that will, it's the first of its kind in the nation. It'll remove out-of-pocket costs for preventative breast care screenings and includes coverage costs associated with supplemental screenings by MRI or ultrasound. Additionally, the Senate has historically pushed for investments in mental health, and we continue that last year as we fought for mental health financial support for our schools, funding for more support staff in nursing facilities, and workforce recruitment and retention payments for frontline workers. And with regard to education, the courts have spoken. I'm sure you've heard them speak loud and clear. But this presents us with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to evaluate and move forward with education at a clean slate. It's time for us all to get to work on this, Republicans, Democrats, with the governor, the House, the Senate, to establish a 21st century education framework. It would be better for us to do this together, representing all of our constituents, rather than let this be tied up in the courts for years. We have already started on this mission with the historic education from last year's budget, historic EITC funding, safety grants, mental health money. Now we need to build upon this foundation, because every student in Pennsylvania, every student deserves to graduate with a skill to be able to secure a job. Last week I was at a fish fry, and I was followed by a gentleman who I thought was after my halibut, but actually he wanted to thank me for the Middle Income Student Grant Program, the Ready to Succeed program, because it has really helped his son and his family, he said. And that's the kind of program that we need to expand and fund further, because middle income is not the same as it was. It doesn't go as far. So we want to work across the aisle in the best interest of Pennsylvania. We will advance legislation that promotes economic opportunity while ensuring the health and safety of our communities, and we will hold the line when necessary. We look forward to working with Governor Shapiro and the House and hope they are willing to work with us to expand and build upon the groundwork already laid to strengthen Pennsylvania. Thank you. And with that, I will turn it over to my equally short colleague, Senator Martin.
What she lacks in height, she makes up with feistiness. But good morning. The Senate Republican caucus is really going to stand firm on bringing fiscal responsibility to this Commonwealth for the benefit of its citizens and for our long-term sustainability. But we really want to focus on defending freedom, and what does that mean? It means identifying what we hear from job creators, what we hear from families and businesses all across this Commonwealth about why can't you expand here? Why can't you bring new investment here? Well, quite frankly, as Pennsylvania has been known not to be the most friendly business state when it comes to taxation, when it comes to regulations and the uncertainty that comes with it. So we were committed by passing historic corporate net income tax reform last year to position Pennsylvania to be more competitive. And we're going to continue to find ways to position it. So people say they want to open their businesses here, that people want to plant their roots and raise their families here. It's no surprise to anyone that Pennsylvania, over the last many decades, has lagged from the standpoint of economically versus a lot of our close states, and that this state also has lagged demographically. 40,000 people in the last year have left Pennsylvania. So in order to turn that around, this caucus really wants to focus on doing the things that attract people here. And when you talk about cutting government red tape, business and labor groups both agree that excessive government regulations consistently raise costs to consumers and chase away new investments in our communities while doing little to improve public health or safety. Pennsylvanians have been hurt by overregulation in the form of increased electricity costs, increased school expenses, and fewer job opportunities for state residents. In the last session, the General Assembly took up the largest regulatory relief effort in modern history, eliminating, altering, and updating key regulations to more than 15 pieces of legislation to help our entire Commonwealth operate more efficiently. Already in this session, we have approved a proposed constitutional amendment that would ensure lawmakers have the final say on regulations, not unelected bureaucrats who are beholden only to the governor. The people's elected representatives should have the final say. And when asked and presented that same question in May of 2021, the voters of Pennsylvania wanted their elected representatives to have the final say, and in that case, in the governor's emergency declaration process. But we've often seen the ability of governors to attempt to do things like the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which we can talk about high energy costs now and impact on jobs, will be nothing compared to what we'll see if Reggie is implemented, or the prior administration's attempts to change school law through the regulatory process, which we had to fight this caucus in order to get removed last year. Equally as important as the red tape, obviously, is the tax burden. And Pennsylvania's tax structure has real impacts on the lives of individuals and the financial health of the Commonwealth as a whole. We need to continue to find ways to create an environment that will help Pennsylvanians find a good job, provide for their families, and keep more of their hard-earned money in their wallets, especially during the time of historic inflation. In the current session, Senate Republicans, as already mentioned, have already approved a bill to cut the gas tax and have introduced numerous proposals to cut taxes on working families throughout this state. And when we talk about also defending freedom, this caucus is committed to restoring the confidence in our electoral process. Pennsylvanians from both sides of the aisle have raised concerns regarding our elections in recent years, and Senate Republicans have led that fight to make critical reforms to restore faith in that process. Last session, the Senate approved bills to eliminate unsecured voting drop boxes, prohibit third-party funding of elections, and increase funding for training and operations to ensure votes are counted quickly and accurately. In the new session, Senate Republicans built on this progress by approving a constitutional amendment that would implement common sense voter ID requirements. The same voter ID requirements that we see in so many other states, red and blue, and that time after time again in public opinion polling here in Pennsylvania, including recently with the Franklin and Marshall poll, shows 74% of state residents in favor. So the Senate Republican caucus will be committed to attracting Pennsylvania job creators, keeping Pennsylvania families living here, and protecting the freedoms that they cherish so much.